We live in Silicon Valley, so that probably means we're gonna talk about colleges.
But we'll get to that later.
For now, imagine that you are in the heart of San Francisco.
The sun has gone down, but the streetlights have turned on with a thick, heavy fog.
Fog that hasn't quite reached the seats of Davies Symphony Hall.
Seats filled with an audience preparing themselves for
the joy of classical music. So please take your seats, turn off all electronic devices, sit back, relax,
and enjoy the show.
To the person who checked their phone before the intermission, I do not remember your face, but I do remember when that little white rectangle lit up in the bottom right-hand corner of my eye.
I don't remember there being a... But if there was, then I've got to say, Beethoven was pretty far ahead of his time.
See, I know that the law kind of frowns upon physical violence, but if my stairs could turn into spears made out of 1095 high-carbon steel, I can be pretty sure that you'd be applying for a handicapped parking lot.
I think neither you nor I would ever want to enter Davies Symphony Hall again. That is, if your ankles were still intact.
To the person filming the guitarist on the corner off of Castro, stop watching her through the retina display of your iPhone XS.
And start watching her with the retinas of your own eyes.
See, she is not trying to give you happiness through the hearts on your Instagram posts.
She's trying to give you free live music from the bottom of her heart and a reason to come back to that corner cafe for more.
So rather than trying to capture her major 7 chords with that HQ audio,
capture her with a coffee or two after the music is finished for the while.
That is creepy. To the person watching their little brother playing the trombone in their 5th grade winter showcase, I know it's hard, but that little mobile game can wait for an extra half of an hour.
Your trombone shorty has only been playing for a couple of months, but to him, that couple of months has felt like a couple of years. He's putting his world into every note.
Because every single clap he hears when he's standing with his head bowed below his waist means a world and a half to him. So please, to all the people,
we would like to remind you
to turn off your phone before the music starts. But why?
Because you have to be selfish.
Soak up every drop of seconds of experiences of greatness that you can grasp, even when the liquid begins to slip between the cracks of your fingers.
Saturate yourself with the time and memories that come with the seconds you are gifted, and learn to make your fingers watertight.
And remember how sweet those moments tasted long after the sugar dissolves. So to the person who checked their phone before the intermission,
wait, that's too specific.
Or anyone really, next time, put your phone on Do Not Disturb.
Silence it.
Just turn it off. Just close your eyes. And listen. Thank you. Yeah. So thank you guys all for coming out. That's Archish. I'm Ernest. Yeah.
Just for clarification.
And so we decided to do something a little bit unorthodox for this talk because we thought it would be more interesting for you guys and also more fun for us to write. So we decided to do our first real substantial piece of spoken word poetry. And so in the process of writing this, we kind of explored and discovered, whatever term you want to use, 3 really important things. Number 1, spoken word poetry is hard. It's really difficult. Number 2, a little bit of backstory. We kind of screwed up early on. We decided to do spoken word, which means our segment was cut down from 8 minutes to about 4 minutes, and we actually have to give a TED Talk now. Yeah. And so we have about 4 minutes for that. And then number 3, there's a lot more in writing a TED Talk than we thought there would be. There's a lot of new iterations. In fact, our latest one was on this Wednesday, I think.
Yesterday night, dude.
Oh, yesterday night, yeah. And so there really is a lot of work and a lot of heart that goes into it. And what's really nice is that we can be a little less formal, it's pretty cool. We get to try to make a connection. And so it's really fun, and there's a lot more to writing a TED Talk than just writing something to put on your resume.
So let's get a little bit into that. For once, if you couldn't already tell from the title of our talk and also like our tone in the poem, we're both aspiring musicians, and I think we should get into a little bit of why we started doing music. So for me, my parents are relatively unmusical, and so when they first came to Silicon Valley, they picked the instrument for me that had the most number of buttons, that required the most number of work for your hands, that had the most crazy Asian prodigies on it or whatever. And that, of course, was the piano. And so many long practice hours and 3 different teachers later, I'm here.
And my story is just a little bit different. My dad played both the clarinet and the piano, so it was kind of a given that I would start playing music. And so back before I could remember, I started playing the piano. I didn't really like it, and as you can tell from my physique, I am incapable of carrying a piano. And I wanted to play an instrument that I could carry around, so I ended up playing the oboe, and that's what I've been playing for however long.
Yeah, so what we wanted to introduce today originally in our spoken word was the changing of music with the increasing technology and the simultaneously decreasing attention span. And at the same time, in this talk, we wanted to introduce why people choose to do music and other activities and how that's also changing in a similarly competitive and technological time.
So you guys have already heard why me and Archish have started playing music, and that was because we were really, really young. But for somebody who might want to start music when they can actually think and remember things, they might want to do music for other reasons. And some of the smaller ones might be developing taste or maybe having something to do with their time. But some of the bigger and more broad things that you start to notice after doing music for a really long time are three really big things, because that's what I just said. There is building your own character, building a passion for an activity like music, and also building or joining community. But of course, music probably doesn't apply to all of you. If it did, then I'd be really happy. But just to get a little bit of a visual, can I have everybody who actively plays music to go ahead and stand up from their seats?
Wow, it's more than we expected.
Whoops.
So that's obviously not everyone. So let's mix things up a little bit. So stay standing if you play music, but also now stand up if you're involved in theater or a visual art or a fine art or a sport or even something obscure like underwater basket weaving.
That's a lot of people.
That's actually a lot of people.
Whoa.
So all of these activities can contribute to the same three characteristics of character, passion, and community. And unfortunately, a lot of these have been perverted to look more like a 9-to-5 job or simply resume. Oh, you guys can sit down now, by the way. Yeah. So it's almost as if people end up taking these classes, advanced honors classes, that they don't necessarily enjoy, and they don't necessarily build the same characteristics, and they use the activities that are by the side, the activities that they choose to do that they really enjoy, as more of a supplement, as a piece of the puzzle that doesn't really represent you as a person.
Exactly. And even though it might sound like the obvious, we want to really solidify the fact that doing an activity for one of these superficial reasons is really not a great idea. And to make this a little bit easier to digest, if you will, we'll use music as an example. So music requires two really big things among a ton of other stuff that we won't get into. But these two things are practice and performance. Practicing kind of sucks. I don't really like practicing, but I have to do it. But I love performing. And so if somebody doesn't like either practice or performance, but they're forcing themselves to do music, they'd be forcing themselves to practice and forcing themselves to perform. And if you're forcing yourself to do stuff instead of letting yourself do stuff, it's just not as much of a fun or fulfilling life. That just kind of sucks.
Besides, if you are really not enjoying what you're doing, then in the end, you're not going to reach the same level of achievement than someone who really does truly enjoy their passion or what they're doing.
So to the person that may be performing on that stage,
whether it be in an elementary school multi-purpose room,
or maybe busking your heart out on the corner off of Castro,
or maybe even in Davies Symphony Hall with your heart beating to the back of the chairs, with your forehead sweating bullets onto the stage, with 2,743 seats filled, with 2,743 unfamiliar faces, just remember three things.
Number one, whatever you're doing, it's probably hard. Number two,
if you make a mistake, you have maybe 4 minutes to patch it up.
And number three, you are going to love whatever you're about to do on that stage because you loved working for it. And if somebody tries to talk you down, don't you dare just listen.
Well, actually, maybe you should take a second and stop and process it for a
But
minute.
when they are done, you make them listen to you. Thank you.